feels like La Llorona. Her favorite question to ask in old buildings is it haunted? And her favorite ghost tour was in New Orleans, Louisiana. She writes nonfiction. She is Sara Button. Give it up!
Whatever you feel. Okay, so I love Halloween, and the context for this, so I wrote this story. It is a true story, and it is part of the family legend that exists in the Button family, mostly because my uncle, whose name is John, who is in this story, is one of the best storytellers probably I will ever know in my life. I love him very much, and I grew up always asking him to tell me the ghost stories that he had very truly experienced. And so this is one of those stories that is true, that he experienced. Really. In May of 1870, 7 Catholic sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet arrived in Tucson, Arizona. They wanted to give rest to the weary and help to the fallen and preach the good word of their Lord. Soon after their arrival to the desert, they established a nursing program, convent, and hospital, becoming integral in Arizona's growing economy and community. Their success continued with parochial schools and an orphanage, and in 1961, on Tucson's east side, they opened St. Joseph's Hospital to accommodate the city's expanding population. It is 1981. Lennon has been dead less than a year, and Rick Springfield is singing about Jesse's girl, and it is summertime in Tucson. It is dry and hot, even at night, and sometimes the best remedy is a nice cold beer. So that's what John and Tim and Kim are drinking. But they're only 17, so they've gone to one of the few places in the city where they can drink without concern of harassment from the cops or groundings from parents. Next to the abandoned building behind St. Joseph's Hospital. Yes! Can we time that for like a later one? Once, the building belonged to the Sisters of St. Joseph. Perhaps it still does. They're not sure. They suspect the nuns lived there once, that it was maybe turned into a Catholic school, maybe it was for girls. In either case, nobody takes care of it now. Boards cover the doors and windows, and desert shrubs have begun to encroach past the point of landscaping to reclaim the structure. It's the perfect place to party. Tim and Kim sit on the steps leading up to the entrance. John leans back against a car that has been left to rust and takes a swig of beer. At first, he doesn't notice the quiet. Silence isn't unusual anyway. From where they are, it's impossible to hear the traffic on Wilmot Boulevard. Sometimes the final bleats of ambulance sirens pulling up to St. Joe's punctuate their conversation, but a lull isn't strange. Nor does John notice a charge of electricity in the air or feel his hair rise on the back of his neck. But Tim does. John, what's behind me? His voice is slow and dragging, but it's not from the beer. John turns around to face them. Behind Tim is a nun. The black of her robe is barely visible, but her habit looks to be glowing. Her skin is gray, deep wrinkles wizen her face, and her eyes are so sunken in the sockets, John can't even see them. She's floating. You don't want to know, John replies, dropping his Budweiser. As if these words have released them from otherworldly shackles, Tim and Kim both stand and bolt. John is staring so intently at this thing that he doesn't even realize they've gone until they buzz by him. He sees them only in his peripheral vision as ghosts themselves, and then realizes he needs to run, too. They reach the hospital parking lot and stop. It didn't follow us, John says, panting. Tim blanches. Did you feel that? I felt like I was a magnet stuck to a refrigerator back there. I could barely move. Let's go back, Kim says. Maybe whatever it is will still be there. But all they find next to the abandoned building is the rusted car and the half-full beer cans. The one John had dropped in his escape has spilled on its side, darkening the desert sand. like blood. The next night, John and Kim return. Tim refuses to come back. Karen, Kim's sister, joins them instead. This time, they bring a crowbar and some candles so they can break into the abandoned building and conduct a seance. Wild hypotheses flit through their imaginations as to who the nun was and what she wanted. They hope to summon her again to ask. The scene looks the same as it had only 24 hours earlier, as it always does. Deserted, quiet, dark. John starts prying wooden boards from the door when they hear the pump of a shotgun, a dog's growl, and 3 words they never expected to hear. "You're under arrest." John and the girls turn. A security guard stands there, dog leashed at his side. This is the first time they've ever seen anyone else there. Too bewildered to respond politely, John says, "Where did you come from?" "What are you talking about? I'm here every night." John and Kim glance at each other, knowing this guy must be asleep in his truck on the regular. They have been there drunk and loud countless times without seeing anyone patrolling. In an attempt to appeal to his mercy, they begin to tell him what they were doing there, why they even wanted to break into a busted up old building. He interrupts their overlapping voices and says, "Let me guess. You guys saw the ghost of a nun and she was all old and ugly and wrinkly and floating towards you." Kim and John are shocked. "Yeah, that's exactly what we saw. How did you?" He scoffs. "You're still under arrest for trespassing." Do you kids know how many times I've heard that stupid story? Boom! Oh, no, it didn't work. The end, true story, that's all.
Our next reader was once described in a eulogy as a fictitious character created as part of an elaborate hoax. His work was featured in Miser Magazine, Hello Horror, and Devilfish Review. His blog, DinosaurWTF.com, is the leading provider of anti-dinosaur fear rhetoric. He is afraid of many things, but the combination of semis and torrential rain and highway traffic is near the top of the list. Please welcome from Chatham, Alex Friedman.
I'm supposed to be Columbo, but I'm going to turn back into me for this reading part. Okay. Really uncomfortable. So I've got a piece of flash fiction for you tonight. There it is. It's called "The Hatch in the Wall." Oh, thanks for the introduction and all that. Okay. I wrote that about myself. You didn't. Anyway. This is the hatch in the wall. I clearly remember why my mother and I moved away from the house of my childhood. There, I could tell it was winter when I would awaken to sleet dropping from the gutters above my bedroom window, slopping like ladle servings of cafeteria potato. That sound was welcome in my drafty bedroom. It meant that night was over. St. Gregory, my mother's Doberman, used to sleep at the foot of my bed. It was a habit he had picked up while I was bedridden with pneumonia at age 8. The year I turned 9, around Christmas, was when St. Gregory noticed the problem with the hatch in the wall. The thin wooden door opened from the far corner of my bedroom and led to a dank crawl space. It may have extended under the entire house. I never dared to find out. Animals, mice or squirrels usually, would sometimes find their way in through that hatch. It frightened me to think how many vermin must have crept through the dark unnoticed, scheming and thieving, before St. Gregory began sleeping in my room. Now and then I would wake up in the night to a low growl and the clack of dulled claws lunging to the wooden floor. I hid under the covers. A moment later, my mother would rush in and take the mangled, chewed rodent to the trash bin at the back door. From beneath my blankets, I'd hear St. Gregory lick his chops, and then the bed would creak as he resumed his post. The week before Christmas, my mother took me and St. Gregory on an overnight trip to Grandma Gabby's house. She was our only family in the States. When we returned, the house was a wreck. Food was eaten and spilled in the kitchen. Our bathroom towels were torn into strips. The toothpaste tube was covered in tiny bite marks. My mother's jewelry was scattered across her vanity. There were dirty, three-taloned prints on my bedroom floor leading from the hatch. The dinner knives were missing. "Raccoons," she said. She nailed the hatch shut. That night, I heard St. Gregory growl at a tapping in the dark. I pulled the blankets over my head. It sounded like a stone beating against the nails in the hatch. St. Gregory's growl grew deeper. I wanted to shout for my mother, but the noise wouldn't come. I didn't even dare to peek out from under the covers. I felt that if I pretended to sleep and remained very still, nothing would get me. The tapping stopped. There was a slow creak as the hatch door lifted. St. Gregory snarled, and he clattered to the wooden floor. Something snapped and there was a shriek. My mother burst into the room and flipped the light on. She screamed. I looked out from under the covers. Her face was contorted with terror. St. Gregory's ear was torn and there was blood all over the floor. Dangling from St. Gregory's mouth was a tiny feathered arm with 3 fingers. It clutched one of our kitchen knives. The hatch door was broken and hanging to the side. Dozens of tiny, glinting eyes watched me from within the hatch and then scattered into the darkness beneath the house. Thank you.
Our next reader is Jeff Oakes. Jeff is the author of the recently released chapbook Mistakes with Strangers, published by Seven Kitchens Press. His poems and essays have appeared in Field, Plowshares, North American Review, Creative Nonfiction, At Length, and in many other journals. He teaches poetry and prose at the University of Pittsburgh. Please welcome Jeff Oakes.
Should have had that music when I was coming down the aisle. I do in fact have 666 as part of my birthday. So, I'm very professional. I always have a reading list on a napkin. So I actually, for me, Halloween, my joke is I dress like a serial killer tonight. Halloween for me is actually a fairly important thing. I think of it as one of the New Year's moments for me, when I get rid of old things and I get new things, or I start looking toward new things. The old furniture. My mother arrives after driving 6 straight hours, unable to see behind her the white car full of my accumulated furniture. The Morris chair she found for almost nothing and stripped, and I sanded endlessly one summer until it was glass smooth. The writing table bought after old Mrs. Riley, whose taste in tables was legendary, who loved wood smoothed by hours of use. Wood still standing solid in the summer of its existence, passed away, and her full house was sectioned and auctioned until nothing but light was left where her indefatigable furniture had stood. And the other chair, the only piece of furniture I wanted when my grandmother died, except the table my cousin got, reupholstered in blue velvet and looking nothing like the chair I sat in while I played for hours on her small electric organ, still full of the same threatening creaks that every summer, free from schoolwork, I would drown out with wild summer-inspired organ noise while she dusted the furniture upstairs or baked molasses cookies. Her jars were always full of things we never finished eating. At her kitchen table, we would play cards or name birds through the hot hours of August, or just sit and watch my grandfather do nothing but sleep in his hammock, or the cat sleep in the grass nothing could keep from growing. She loved Crazy Eights all those summers I made restless music and walked, listening to the wind thrash for hours, trees in the woods nearby, trees that probably became furniture for someone. Now my mother and I lug in the chairs and the table and arrange them precisely to get the full effect of their power against winter. The Morris chair, heavy and full of work, goes near the fireplace, makes a space nothing can chill. Near the window, we set the writing table, and beside it, the blue chair I spent dull hours composing in, tired of being tired. Like totems, the furniture begins to change, charge the room, as the bright hours of autumn daylight shrink toward December, into hours of nothing but darkness and cold light. They fill the house with summer growth and drive. I touch the furniture. I sit down at the table. Parsnips. When did I start chewing the roots of things, roasted with salt and pepper, the pale kings under the mountains? The young boy I once was, naked in the moonlight, while my best friend asked me questions about sex. Neither one of us had a clue. Both of us thin and white as these bodies whose skin I flay, whose thin trunks I whittle down into slivers, cubes. When he moved close one night, I didn't refuse what he wanted to do. It's a wonder I kept breathing. I was so afraid the heat he made rise was blood. I said, "Stop, that's enough." Later, at home, I did it though. Went all the way through the fear to another side of myself. Stood after and looked in the mirror. Thought I was beautiful to have survived. Just doing these rapid fire. I hope you know. It's Halloween. Part of the undercurrent of all this is love, I'm sorry to say. It's probably the most frightening thing. It's the thing all serial killers stand to try to get rid of. Right? Or sex. The song. No one knows anyone who knows the song Orpheus invented in Hades anymore, but it must have had delight in it. Think about what it was up against, what it's like to sing in the tomb wanting love. Yes, to burnt eggplant parmesan. Yes, to warm weight of love in the middle of the night snoring, and you have to choose between pushing him out of bed or learning to live with it for everything else you'd miss. Against the queen of the dead's boredoms, her schedules among the various houses of heroes and suicides and drunks and martyrs, she had only to nod to. To break that heart enough, she would turn to her God, who was more odor than man, whose fingers were roots, whose eyes glittered but never ached, except that once long ago when he saw her. The gravesite for the singer widens. It's possible to make out of air and fingers and years of paying attention some space for the impossible. Whether it's possible to bring back the same is the problem. Orpheus couldn't, the wife of Lot. Neither of them idiots or charlatans or hard-hearted, just the reverse. They knew how to give, where to love, how to thank the gods in the room, knew who else was listening. And yet, in an instant of doubt, all of it taken away. I've spent most of my life thinking about that. My black lab has mastered the art of coming up the stairs at night without making a sound. Sometimes he follows me up when I go to sleep and jump onto the big bed with me. Sometimes he waits until I have settled and turn the light off before he arrives and throws his heavier darkness onto my feet. It's a little like living with a demon, a thought you can't, now that you've thought it, let go of. You have to see it to its end, however painful, whatever sacrifices. Even love suffers. You have to go forward and not look back, say the stories. There will be another lover, surely. Mathematics says there must be hundreds who might do. Astronomy and physics imply millions just waiting. New houses, landscapes, job prospects, dimensions. But, the song says, recycling history, but. It doesn't want to solve for X. It dissolves in Y. It makes us stutter in the step of the choruses whose promises seem too easy to make. It makes each body feel the weight of its want, even the queen of the dead who'd long given up knowing what she was married to for the comforts it afforded. Suddenly she remembered and couldn't stand it, and told Orpheus, yes, take her, anything to get rid of you. But beware not to look too hard at what you're asking for. I think you know what I'm saying. Your song does. Have you listened to it yourself? The cold feet in the night, the arguments about garbage and toothpaste and family. Most of love isn't singing, but schedules and nodding. Most of it is forgetting and not knowing. Yes, some of it is piercing and being pierced. Some of that is worth keeping. Some of that. Think of how much easier it is to live alone with a good dog who obeys you and guards the house while you're sleeping. Why isn't that enough? Why not simply be happy you had it once? Somewhere in the story, maybe the story itself, I keep thinking, is the answer. Maybe love's impossible to ask for and impossible to save. And after we've admitted that, we still have to live. Oh, now I can't read the other dog one. Oh, never mind. So I think this is the last one. This is from the new chapbook, Southern Kitchens Press, Mistakes with Strangers. A little history. The history of your lips would be the history of your eyes and what they did not say, so that my lips would have to ask your mouth to move or be silent. And then the history would haunt or horse around the history of the zipper, the history of the buttonhole, the history of the light on or off, which is the history of the new bed sheets, out of needles, out of fields of plants, whose seeds are hidden in clouds that come and come bursting right there in the middle of the field, depending on the history of runoff and pesticides and weevils, whose history is deeper than kisses, but not longer than two bodies separating in a darkness on a hurt, naked earth.
You guys know anything about these things? Not big Adventure Time fans, are you? That's funny. Sam, back me up. That's funny.
It's funny.
It's from the show. All right. Anyways. Okay, so we've reached our halfway point. We're going to take a little bit of a 10-minute intermission. And so please eat all the food, because we don't want to take any home. So take one for the team, eat another snack cheese. And I'm going to go ahead and make an executive decision here and require that anyone in costume come up here right now for a group picture. Yeah. Okay. Be back in 10 minutes for more reading. Eat the food. Back up here.
Hi, I'm Corey. Ciao. Heather McNaugher is the author of System Hideouts, Panic and Joy, and most recently, the chapbook Double Life. She teaches at Chatham University, and her most recent freakiest Halloween experience occurred last year, where all 5 of the pirates' pierogies showed up on her doorstep. It turns out her crafty friend Val had sewn exact replicas of the costumes. Heather McNaugher.
Thanks, Corey. Val supposedly sent to my email a picture so I could show it to you of the pierogies that she sewed, and they were so good, really, the pirates should probably sue her. But I never got it, so. All right. So two things I wanted to say. Jeff, thank you for keeping Ryan writing. Good job. And Alex, you might be walking me to my car because your story scared the shit out of me. No joke. So I'm just going to read two poems. One I'm reading because we're in such an adamantly English department. And we'll all be sort of familiar with our own narratives about how we got to this state. How did we get here, right? This is called What It Took. Books mattered little to me growing up, and Mom, you were a wreck. Banishing the TV from my psyche, breaking down late nights on the phone. From my bookless cell in seminary housing, I'd hear you. I just don't know what to do with her, you'd sigh, while I'd grimace and fold at the reminder of my herdom. She comes home from school and does nothing. Nothing. But this wasn't true, Mom. And how would you know what I did when I got home from school? My latchkey, a sharp jingle against my hip. It wasn't true that I did nothing. I was busy. Busy dialing the first 6 digits of Megan Carney's house to tell the dial tone I loved her. Phone numbers used to be 7 digits. Kids. I was busy, Mom, shutting myself behind flimsy doors to write the stories that still don't exist for girls like your kid. Later, at 16, a sullen truce slouched between us. You left me alone. I no longer heard your laments in the night. You resigned yourself to my calling, falling in love with Rachel Barton, whose backyard was a snow-blown Shenley golf course, our very own Wuthering Heights. Her parents, the professors, politely unfazed on Gentleman Jack, invited me in for Shabbos and secularism, a tipsy line dance on polished oak floors, sex with their daughter on flannel duvets. It was on such a night I decided I recall the gingery love seat, limbs lost in plush, Rachel's baby blue moons, historic and vague in the ochre dusk of the desk lamp, Jack Daniels courting my soul. I decided to become a professor. A professor of what? Asked my girlfriend, deflatingly pragmatic and swift. I thought of my math scores, abysmal. Considered science's irreversible wrongs when my mind's moonlit eye spied my mother, sighing as she shuffled along each book-clad wall of our row house. What to read? What to read tonight? A professor of English literature, I announced, more certain of my home in this world than I had ever been or would ever be again. Well, said Rachel, neutral as mathematics, you'd better start reading. That night I started life over, began at the beginning with The Secret Garden, narrated out loud by the first girl to destroy me. Next was Mistress Masham's Repose, then Stuart Little, Louise Fitzhugh, Anais Nin. At 20, I would ravish John Gardner in a reckless week. Fate latched on and landed me smack in the middle of the overcrowded nowhere that is graduate school. All of us careening towards becoming professors of English literature. My mother has her heart for dinner every night. What it took was whiskey's tawny whisper along the bourbon floorboards of somebody else's parents, while nostalgia for the future cast its dizzying fog over the frank, violet stare of love. That's what I'm dressed as for Halloween as an English professor. got the blazer and the death stare, I always say, you're good. Right, Brian? So this is my only Halloween-appropriate poem that exists on Earth that I know of. Actually, I was looking in my full-length book, desperately trying to find anything with the word Halloween in it. And there's a poem in there that I didn't even know was in there. I mean, that's embarrassing. And a little bit of a luxury problem, I'm not going to lie. This is a book, or this is a poem called The Outsiders. Some of you may have also been obsessed or never heard of it. But it was turned in the early 80s into a movie with some pretty beautiful men in it at the time. Rob Lowe, Patrick Swayze, C. Thomas Howell, who we've never heard from again, really. So, The Outsiders. I am in 4th grade, and it is my Brownie Troop Halloween party. I have painstakingly combed Johnson's baby oil, a cup of it, into the obstinate root system of my frizzy blonde hair. This will not be one of the worst mistakes in human history until bedtime. I have a photo from this night. In it, I am in the living room of our Elgin Street apartment with my Exxon Valdez spill of a mane and a Minnie Mouse muscle shirt. Already at 9, I am a little in love, if not exactly aware of the irony here. Two-Bit, played by Emilio Estevez, wears a Mickey Mouse TC. We are the same person, which is what I've been my whole life trying to tell you. At the Brownie Halloween party at Fulton School, I am not the only greaser. Christy D'Angelo has swiped my thunder. In a few years, Christy and I will play house, which involves me straddling her big belly and pretending to beat the shit out of her while her little brother Anthony watches. In the background chirps the Brady Bunch. You really can't make this shit up. Anyway, Christy, fat, bullied, tragic. And yet here among the strawberry shortcakes and Smurfs, she swaggers. Her swarthy Italian duck's tail rivaling Ralph Macchio's. Her oversized leather and Levi's bear a tough butch broad I do not want to fuck with. She summons, one dense finger, come here. It is not cool at all that my identity has been co-opted by fat Christy D'Angelo. Her toughies swap tonight for the same black Converse under my own rolled cuffs. For this coincidence, I don't feel one bit less alone in the world. I like being alone in the world. I come here. But, she challenges, do you have one of these? From her denim back pocket, she pulls what I know from my S.E. Hinton immersion is an honest-to-God switchblade. Black plastic casing, indestructible, a slender, intimate gun. She opens it, slow and sudden, and now it's reality as long as a child's arm, the blade shiny enough to do your hair in. I shake my head, staring. I don't have one of those. I have the dull, stubborn pocket knife I stole from my grandma's junk drawer last week under the shrill eye of her parakeet, Bobo. You can't make this stuff up. And which I will put back while Grandma's in the bath because the guilt is keeping me up nights. No, I say, still shaking my head, I sure don't. No knife, no balls, no penis. You better believe this is about the body. I have a Minnie Mouse t-shirt, not even Mickey. Its collar now dark and sopping with baby oil underneath the already unbearable chest. I have a copy of The Outsiders, pruned and coverless from when it fell in the bathtub. I have identical Laurel editions of Rumblefish, That Was Then, This Is Now, and Tex, which I would rather read than breathe, or eat, or even sing along to the Police, Synchronicity, my first favorite thing to do. I have even less than Christy, who doesn't have a penis either, but is at least armed. Rivals forever now, we do as men do, slouch to opposite corners of the brownie Halloween party, two butch baby dykes trying it on. Thank you very much.
So next up we have Nina. Nina owns a purple rainbow uniform shirt, which says much about her personality and disposition. She's also a huge sports fan, as long as the sport in question is roller derby. And I'm going to read this next part in the first person that she has written it in, because I think that's how it really shines. I would also like to add, as part of the Halloween theme, that I was terrified of the moon as a small child, and it made going outside really difficult. I got over it. Probably important to stress that I got over it. So here she is, over it and ready to delight us with some fiction.
It's totally fine. I'm totally fine. I'm going to read you the first 4 or 5 pages of a short story because not having closure is spooky and it's Halloween. So. This is Believers. He was called Grimmy, though I'm not sure why. No one was sure why. He'd been named so long ago that the kids who did it were grown and gone. Grimmy lived in the woods past the old Board of Education building. You couldn't find anyone who'd cop to seeing him straight on, though everyone had an almost story. Older siblings, sometimes a parent, whoever was around to overhear. What made him different was that you could prove him. During that summer, my friends and I went out in a group of 4 or 5 to look for his campsites, which shifted every few days. You'd find a pair of rain-hardened socks, some bedded down leaves, maybe even a dirty magazine. For the longest time afterward, I couldn't think of a girl naked without remembering those photos in the woods, so generally I tried not to. He probably would have stayed one of our stories forever if it hadn't been for Tyler's sister. My family had moved states when I was halfway through 6th grade. My dad had gotten a promotion, regional manager of his tech company, but at the time I didn't care. What mattered was my parents' betrayal. I'd spent my whole life in our old town and had the acceptance of my peers, if not their respect, and now I would have to start all over. Somehow I'd gotten the idea that I had already met most everyone I would ever need to impress. But my parents were unsympathetic, or else the case I made was unconvincing, because we went to Maryland anyway. Tyler was the first kid to speak to me that first day in school. I clung to him because anything was better than sitting in the cafeteria alone. He was my default friend. And that first day, I think we both knew it. There were worse things. It was just good luck that Tyler turned out to be okay. He was an actual Boy Scout, well-liked, smart in all our classes, but not so smart you had to hate him. And I didn't hate him, and he didn't hate me. In fact, he kept inviting me over for dinners and s'mores and movies long after he could have shaken me off. By the end of the school year, though, I managed my way into friendship with one of the little fringe cliques and didn't have to go puppy dogging after Tyler anymore. Mostly the kids in this group were other boys, though sometimes Vicki Hansen joined us when she was feeling social. She was tall and terrifying, and she could spit like a man. They weren't especially nice, any of them, which was part of the reason I was so happy they'd chosen me. These were the kids who taught me how to climb chain link fences. These were the kids who first told me about Grimmy and showed me his traces, and for the first sun-dazed weeks of summer, that's all I could think about. Then Tyler called my house wanting to hang out, and I remembered how much I owed him. So at the next meeting in the woods, I asked my new friends if he could come with us and look for clues. Tyler Cole, said Mark Perlman. He's my best friend, I said. He's okay, Adam, Mark said very quickly, and the others nodded. We all think so, it isn't that. We all, 5 of us that day, counting me, fell silent. It's just, Katie, he said at last. What he told me then was this. During all those lunchtime conversations, our bus rides to one another's houses, our partner projects in science class, Tyler had left one person out of his family's stories. His parents were both orthodontists, and his grandparents lived in Virginia, and he had a Jack Russell named Wishbone after the dog from TV. And he had a sister, or anyway, he used to. Katie Cole, Mark said. God, Katie Cole. She was a straight-A student, played the clarinet in the high school marching band, babysat some of the neighbors' kids on the weekends. She watched me once, Vicky said, solemn. Me too, Mark said. She was gorgeous. 3 years before, when we were going into 3rd grade, she'd been in 10th. She wanted to do track in the spring, so that fall she trained all around the neighborhood, mostly middle distance stuff. One afternoon, she left her parents a note and went out with the stopwatch, and the last time anyone ever saw her, she was running. And get this, Mark said, she was headed here. I said, she ran away. Why would she run away? She had it made, Mark said. And she never came back either. They only ever found one of her shoes, and guess where it was? Something wet lurched in my chest. We were standing right at the border of the Board of Ed lot and the woods proper, close enough to the building that the grass was still trimmed. Our voices had gotten quieter and quieter without our noticing, and then we fell silent. The crickets made a sound like bacon frying. I looked down at my feet and thought about stiff gray socks, piles of flattened leaves. I thought he was just a guy, I said at last. Yeah, said one of the other boys. Kind of. The next time Tyler called, I felt guilty enough to invite him over. We played video games in the basement and fake wrestled during the cutscenes, like always. But I let him win for the first time ever. He didn't appear to notice. He was having a great time eating my mom's salsa and bouncing happily on the edge of the couch. For some reason, his amiability made me sadder than anything. Salsa was such a small thing, and I almost cried when he asked if we had more, because I could not bear the thought of depriving him that happiness, almost as unbearable as my own pity. What are you doing Saturday? He said when we left for dinner. We're going to the wave pool. You should come. Saturday was a grimy day. I think my aunt is visiting, I said. Suddenly my life was split in two. There was the normal part with Tyler and my parents and the rest of the world where I pretended not to know what I knew. And then there was the part with the codes and plans and maps, with Mark and Vicky and Donnie and Jordan, where we cataloged each thing we stumbled over and scared ourselves crazy with stories about what Grimmy might be like in person. Metal teeth, nails sharp as knives, skin so rotten it looked like it was melting. Holding these two halves together was Katie. I tried to find out everything about her I could without drawing attention. I had this idea that maybe I could figure out where she went. I had this idea that she, not Grimmy, was the mystery I was meant to solve. It would be nice to say that I wanted to do this for the Coles, who had to have been through hell, but it would be untrue. Even now, that's hard to admit. There was something about this disaster, so close to my own life and at such a safe remove, and it was something I didn't want to name. The drought struck shortly after, and all over town the grass turned yellow. When I visited now, Tyler's parents wanted us to stay on the sidewalk and out of the backyard. The lawn was set up with timed sprinklers, which I had seen in a movie once. This was my first clue that the Coles are richer than us. Those sprinklers. It was the kind of lawn people were paid to maintain, and even during better weather, Tyler and I weren't supposed to walk on it if we didn't have to. Whereas my mother always cut back the bushes in our yard herself, wearing an old bandana and humming Fleetwood Mac. Tyler's place had fantastic air conditioning too. The house was old and gorgeous, half a mile from mine and close to the woods. I'd been there a million times at this point, but I still hadn't gotten over the skylight in the foyer or all of those leather couches. I swear I even had dreams about the mint green carpet his mom had picked out, all raked up in the same perfect direction. So I didn't mind having to stay indoors, even if Tyler obviously did. He kept apologizing for the scarcity of things to do, and I told him I didn't mind, but he'd shut up about it, and we would settle into an easy kind of quiet. On one of these visits, when he'd run out of things to smash or girls to talk about, I excused myself and left Tyler splayed across the couch in the den. The bathroom was right off the kitchen, but I walked the whole length of the hall, looking at the family photographs. I hadn't had a chance to linger in front of them before. Look, a wedding snapshot. Tyler on 4th grade school picture day. Candid from a family reunion, judging by how everyone is squinting identically. And then, at the very end, a studio portrait of a girl with freckles, hair tied back, braces on display. I knew her immediately because she looked just like her brother. I stopped short. I heard myself breathe. My face was reflected over hers, and it felt wrong for me to be that close. Neither of us blinked. She was real. She had maybe stood right here, looking at this exact picture. I hadn't exactly doubted it, but it was different to see her, to really see her. I had never known someone who disappeared before. Then there was a noise in the kitchen and I bolted. Reflexive, I don't know why. It was like Katie was a secret I had to keep, a story no one had told Tyler yet. And if I were the one who slipped up, I would never forgive myself. He could still be my friend if we didn't acknowledge what had happened. That's what I decided later, anyway, once I'd locked myself in the bathroom, the way a real friend would. Thank you.
Our last writer is getting his MFA in nonfiction at Chatham. He is currently a Henry Wright Teaching Fellow and Student Coordinator for Chatham's Words Without Walls program at the Allegheny County Jail. He's an active member of West Virginia University's Appalachian Book Project, and if you're interested in talking to him afterward, you would be well advised to talk about Halloween-specific video games and the adorable animals of Pet Sematary. You can find this next writer doodling with his wife in Pittsburgh and rambling at www.alligatorsmile.blogspot.com. Please welcome a great writer and a great friend of mine, Jonny Blevins.
Wrong blog, wrong blur, whatever. Thanks. I couldn't find anything spooky enough in my nonfiction. I mean, my sentence structure is pretty spooky. This is good enough. My friend's in the room, and we grew up together. We're kind of fucked up, and she loves cats, and I'm really allergic to them, so I'm always curious about them. So I thought, what's her latest cat's point of view? And how can I exaggerate that as much as possible? So it's called Call Me Wednesday. Like Shield doubles as a mobile podium. Call me Wednesday, but I won't answer to it. It's a time of darkness again, another end to a scorching summer day, and I'm here in the spot where I'll always be, inside a cold bowl, a couple paws in front of the television. Just mush my gray fur into the slick, white porcelain, push hard enough to feel the cool through my mats, mash so close against it, maybe the bowl and I are already one. I wonder if other cats are made of jelly as well. I could stay up and wait for my person, really. She'll stumble in, she'll have just killed a fat-ass rat. All that blood smeared around her lips. My person calls it red lipstick, and I don't know what a stick for lips is. But her breath has everything to do with animal slaughter. She is mysterious. She is wonderful. And now she is all I have. When I get left alone like this, my heart can only manage to place darkness upon everything. The house reeks of piss and black mold, but the pine floors are always pretty pristine. It's a sexy paradox. Some days like today, she forgets to turn the AC on. What the fuck? And the floors are rendered hellishly hot. Feels like fire licks the pads of my paw with every step. You'd stick to this bowl too. Don't even get me started with the sandbox problems, man. Maybe Maybe I'll take a steamy shit just to the just to the left of the box again. Maybe I'll place another sturdy turd, aim my asshole just so the shit hangs right from the edge of the sandbox. Maybe it'll take form like a crusty brown finger, not with the sand, but peering over the plastic bag. That'll teach her. She'll say, "Wednesday, you bitch." Whatever that means. It'd be worth it, but then I'd have to get out of my bowl. And the sandbox is bad, sure. And the smelly shit is pretty gross, yeah. But the certainty of this place, the security, the light, sounds and colors radiating from the television, it's not the dark world I was used to 4 months ago. The people have stopped walking the sideways, the day rendered defenseless tonight. The people have stopped taking the rattling, heavy stomps on our bed ceiling, a brittle sheet of one thin metal step. In the time of darkness, telephone pole lights cast shadows from the lurking stray dogs against the sparkling snow and lifeless leaves. The same hungry dogs who make eyes at my hungry babies from across the street. In the time of light, the blacktop shimmers with salt against slush like frozen water and sand. In the darkness, sand, soot, salt, and snow all bunched together on the side of the road, a dark gray and green kind of pie crust. My sick baby boy likes to stay up late. He is blind, and at night the sounds are different, and he feels it more than any of us. My two eldest, by a couple of seconds, girls wait in our nest, the black stair step with the shape of stars graded in the design. As good a sky as any, I always tell them. The metal keeps us safe, I say. Even though it is cold, it protects us from the fire of the coyote's mouth, I say. I don't say it's fragile. I say it is strong. My twin baby girls are calico spotted with brown spots. My baby boy is orange, a sight for sore eyes and an eyesore of predation. My two girls wait under the step, knowing that we need to keep an eye on their brother, that we need to keep an eye out for food, that we need to keep an eye out and not become food. This is what they grew up on. I don't know if I need to say it, but food is hard to find in the winter. In the summer, it's a little easier. People waste food like it's nothing. They throw it on the ground. The trees throw it on the ground. Even the fat-ass squirrels leave the nuts behind. We eat it up. In the summer, it's a better life. But in the winter, people don't run around so much. They don't offer up any food. Every molecule becomes slower. Even the rats, a little less often poking their heads out of the nests. We try not to starve. It's times like these I wish we were squirrels, not cats. I wish I could kill a squirrel, save its meat for my babies, and sometimes I wish I were just some other creature. Maybe a beaver hidden in the dam, a fish under the ice, a person, and a burger. I wish I could eat the moss off a tree, twigs, maybe wolf down some bark and call that a meal. Not that we haven't tried, but instead we search for small rodents. I fight the dogs for my children's lives every day. I fight for the rodents, I fight for any sort of meal, the way my mother died fighting for me. We find shelter, huddled together under that staircase, and bless its cool metal feel. This is better than the shelter of a hole in a tree, better than hiding under a rock, tunnels in the snow, and the leaves like the monsters we know. We have a home at least. We huddle together. We are warmer than we would be. I come back to our spot, stand between the boy and the girls. I look back at them thinking of all the times they wanted to have something more. I can see on their faces they are sleepy. I want to give them more, maybe a fish, maybe a fire. I want to shine the light of humans' fire, the kind of fire I find through the windowsills on their pink little noses. But all that, all my dreams, the fire nearly every day receives its nicely dousing at the giggle of the dogs. I grab my son's scruff, time to go inside, he knows, but he never sees it coming. The girls sigh with relief. To be used to the near sight of death, to be so accustomed to hiding from a thing that wants nothing more than to destroy them whole, what a life. They think, at least now I can sleep. The dogs pinch our refuge, try to make their heads grow small enough to reach inside the step and eat us up. Death places its head in our very home nearly every night, especially in the winter, and it squishes between the rectangles at the edges of the step. I can smell its breath, the breath of consumed skulls, hearts, and muzzles, this odor, this bird-free smell of winter killing. It is the most chilling. I claw at her face. Back off, back off! Stay away from this place and never come back, I hiss. She yelps, growls a little louder. I wonder whether she is always the same beast or that same monster quickly heals the scars and comes back for more carves to her face. I clawed her some more, her spit from her snapping jaw plinking against my gray fur. I clawed her again. My babies fall asleep in the chaos, the little boy wide awake. He will sleep during the day. After all, he is blind, so what does any of it matter? I claw at the pooch's face for our freedom. I claw at her for our fire. I claw at her because this world should be for all of us. And at last she gives up, only to come back tomorrow. So quick intermission. Wednesday's babies die. She obviously goes crazy. She has the little boy left over. Instead of going farther, instead of going on, I decide to turn around. I have figured out what I must do. This world is not going to get any easier. This world is not going to have any less fire, any more cold, like the first blizzard of season. My girls and my 6 baby boy huddled together. I march back to our metal stair step, our home. I look at the white, sifting snow globe in the sky, moving over this cement. It is somehow suspended like a bird in snow flight. It hangs itself, free of concern, free of worry. It makes more snow, sometimes rain, fall, and flood on our home, what was our home. I imagine myself climbing into the clouds, taking the power of that cloud. I imagine myself drowning every single dog, every member of the dog's family, everything that even smells a little bit like a dog. But I am powerless. I am nothing to this world. I have killed my baby girls, not them. And I know how to make this right. My baby boy makes a strange sound, a sound I've never heard before. I stir anxiously, but I hold my grip. I know that this is the only thing I can do for him. I press my paw harder onto his face, feeling the trembles slowly fade to silence, fade to peacefulness, fade to happiness. After all, he's blind. I can't bear the thought of him seeing all this someday. He did not wake, but in his dream, he is in the time of permanent light with his sisters. He is not afraid because now he can see again. Now he's not sick. Now he is with my mother and she has healed him. My mother is feeding my babies the fish of the sky, the rats hiding in the snow and the air, some scraps from the people who've gone away too. Thanks.